Welcome to Guided Abroad, where I bring you in on the intuitive downloads, bold decisions, and vulnerable moments that unfold when spirit takes the lead. This is my personal story, but it could be yours too, because we all have the ability to receive and follow inner guidance. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. This is my first report from the road. I'm currently in Morocco on a scouting trip. In this episode, I'll share the guided nature of my trip planning, why my guides had to tell me to let Morocco be Morocco, and the surprising synchronicities that keep confirming I'm on the right path. Oh, and I'll also tell you what it was like to eat brains. Let's dive in. I've been in Morocco for several days now, specifically in Marrakesh. Most Westerners go to Tangier or Casablanca as an entry point. But for me, I had this calling to Marrakesh. Initially, I was thinking I needed to tour all of Morocco, kind of go hit the major sites to get a feel for the country and discover what might be a good fit for me. But my guides in my meditations and through my dreams guided me to Marrakesh. Marrakesh, once I even heard of Marrakesh for the first time, just popped out on the page to me much stronger than any of the other locations. And then when I had the astrocartography reading, she showed up also saying, for you, I just keep getting this feeling that it's Marrakesh, not the other cities in the country. And with us both aligned, I started to settle more heavily on that. The other thing that was happening when I first understood that Morocco was the target of this potential move is I had searched for all types of tour companies that might take you around and have different experiences. I was really looking for one of those either indigenous immersions or spiritual immersions, because that's what I really enjoyed in my past travels, particularly in South and Central America, but also in other areas of the world, are those chances when I could get involved with a nonprofit or someone who is a leader in these spaces and really experience it like a local. So I was looking for that in this visit. And my guides, though, first through a dream and then later validated directly through conversation and meditation, told me to stop doing that there is a time now for new lessons. And holding on to the way that I learned lessons or the types of lessons that I had learned and the types of growth that I had pursued in the past was going to be a mistake that would hold me back. And that instead, I need to let Morocco be Morocco. And in doing that, I then opened myself up to new learning. So that was a big shift for me, because then the message was just to arrive. Don't make a bunch of plans. Don't be led around by somebody else's agenda. Arrive and follow the signs. And arriving into Marrakesh seemed to be the instructed place. And when I would test, I tend to come back and test my intuition or test the instructions I've been given over and over. And some people may think that that's a sign that I don't trust it. I would say that that's a sign that I understand that free will is in play for not only me, but for everybody else on the planet, and situations can change. And so sometimes I like to come back and validate that we're still on the same path. So when I was doing that over and over again, I would come back and validate. So Marrakesh is still the right place to be. What about these other locations that I hear are so very popular or have certain types of spiritual resonance or something like that? Are those valuable to add? And they would specifically answer, no, these are not. Specifically, like in this case, the mountains are not of value and the desert is of very high importance. So I would plan my stay accordingly. So here in Marrakesh, I have been here now for several days, and I've reached a tipping point where I'm moving into a second phase after this. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the synchronicities and experiences I've had. First of all, upon arriving, the first thing you see in the airport, or at least the first thing I noticed, was the circular bread that is a staple for every meal here in Morocco. And it is unavoidable. It's on for sale in every kiosk, every corner, and is presented to you with every dish that you order. And this bread had been in a recurring dream that I had had a couple months ago. I woke up to dreams of this hand shaking flour and stirring in the salt and the water over and over and over with such a feeling of immense welcoming. So when I saw that same bread here, exactly how it looked in my dream, with one little difference between the dream and reality, which I'm interested to see if I will come across the specific type of bread or mix into that bread that I see later in the travels. So we'll stay tuned to see if that shows up a little bit later. I see the bread, I feel the welcome, and I feel this validation that I'm in the right place. It's almost like my ticket getting stamped when I see that bread everywhere that I go. One of the things I decided to do when I first arrived to get oriented, because it's a very busy city center. The Medina is what it's called, and it's 17 square miles, I believe, inside the walls of the city. And it is kind of chaos in there. This is very old build, and you can get very easily lost in there. And so I decided to do a street food tour in order to get introduced to the local dishes, know what to call them, how to eat them properly. Sometimes that's a thing, as well as have a chance to walk around with someone I can ask questions to. So I did that within the first 24 hours. And that street food tour really oriented me well and had some highlight moments. For example, I'm a vegetarian, no hate against people who eat meat, that's fine. There were some opportunities, though, to eat some unusual meat. And when I get that opportunity, I always sign up for a couple bites just to have the experience. And in this particular opportunity was to eat brains and to eat spleen. Those were prepared as street foods. I understand they're not everyday foods for people here in Morocco, but they are available and something that some people do choose. And so I did try that, and I will report that I prefer the brains, surprisingly. And it's very much like soft tofu. Honestly, if you had those side by side, soft tofu and brain, kind of made up in like a scramble with some spices, I don't think you could tell the difference. It's very similar. So that is an interesting thing that happened, but also many other wonderful foods. And maybe after the trip, I'll do an episode just on the specific foods if people want that. That's of interest. But back to the intuitions and synchronicities. So the thing that was really remarkable about this food tour is that as the tour wound down, the other people on the tour split off. They were couples that had local stays very close to there, but mine was far away, and the guide kindly offered to walk me part of the way. We got to talking about other topics. He asked me what I do, what kind of things that I'm involved in, and I mentioned meditation. He got very interested in a much deeper way. We're beyond the surface at this moment because he's been struggling with his meditation practice. And our conversation takes a completely different turn. So we get into a deep conversation about what he can be doing with his practices. And then also we talk about how I ended up being here in Morocco. And in that conversation, it comes up that he comes from the desert. If you will remember, part of the synchronicities that have led me to be here is a backstory that I recorded over a decade ago and didn't even remember, but stumbled across through an intuitive nudge to go open one of my journals. And there it was, which was notes that in my deep, deep ancestry, my mother's side and my father's side warred against each other over land rights in the Sahara Desert. And they killed each other for generations. Well, this guide tells me that that's exactly his family story.
he comes from these desert towns. That's where he was born and raised. His family still lives there. And he has that exact story in his family. He has people he's known his entire life, that there's a narrative in their family that, yeah, we talk to them now, but they're part of those people. Our tribes and their tribes, we have killed each other for generations. And so we still kind of hold them at a distance and are suspicious of them, even though we interact with them. So he turns to me and he says, we could be related. And it was an amazing moment. It was a moment of just feeling a synchronicity here, right? Of all the Get Your Guide app offerings for a tour for me to sign up for, and I'm sure he's not the only one that goes through the agency that he works with, and for him to get assigned to mine, you see how that comes together. It's very unusual. And for us to even get to the point of having that conversation also very easily could not have happened. And I think I'll add one more bit to that, which is it had been such a long day. I'd been out walking in the heat all day. And by the time I get home, it's 9:30 or so in a strange town where I don't know any of the primary languages by myself. So I'm been on high alert with lots of other information coming in. And I kind of forgot that we had this moment. So I think it's this reminder to all of you to be looking for the signs that you're in the right place, or where is the right place for you to be staying or being in your life right now. And then how easy it is to forget those. And it's why it's so important for us to be journaling, to be recording, to be making the effort to be attentive and then to hold in our attention longer. Because it was a huge realization about 24 hours later when I remembered, oh my gosh, that moment that we had about the meditations and about the family similarities. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy that happened. So let my forgetting help you to remember and to be alert and attentive to the signs in your life. I'll be back before too long with an update about the next section of my trip. See you soon.
You've been listening to Guided Abroad with me, Sarah Cook, where spirit and intuition lead the way. Did something in today's episode spark your curiosity or resonate deeply? I'd love to hear about it. And your story or question might even shape a future episode. Share your questions, stories, and comments on YouTube, Substack, or social media. Links are on the show page. And subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. It's easy to feel alone on the spiritual journey. I'm so glad that we have each other. Thanks for being here.